this life cycle. Greetings, greetings, welcome, welcome. Come on in. All is a blessing. Welcome. Thank you, Blog Talk Radio. Come on now.
Come back home to Africa. She's calling your name to win. Come back home to Africa.
The fatty cat and golden rain are waiting for you once again. Coming back to you. Welcome, welcome. I don't know what's going on, but all is a blessing. I don't even have that filter. I don't know what's going on, but all is a blessing. Welcome, welcome. Greetings and salutations, one and all. My Blog Talk Radio phones are open at 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. Do press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and I will open your mic momentarily. All is a blessing. Greetings, greetings. Welcome, welcome. Out of bondage and now I am free. Da 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 da. Greetings, come on in. Welcome, welcome. It's your day. It's our day. Greetings, Chef Bougie. Beloved, welcome, welcome. Come on in. Greetings, YouTube. Greetings, Periscope. Welcome, Facebook. Greetings, greetings, Democratic Republic of Congo. Greetings, Ghana. Greetings, Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon. Thank you so much for being with us. Kenya, Ethiopia, South Africa, Egypt. Come on in. All is a blessing. Thank you for being in my Blog Talk Radio audience. Welcome, Kazan. Welcome, welcome. Greetings, Suzette. Thank you so much for being present with us. All is a blessing. Spirit, take the wheel. Ancestors, take the wheel. Ancestors, take the wheel. Eshu alegwana kosi were awo onlo uto ne iwo ada afambo osi obatala mi ita ne ebo onilio abane shu. Eshu is the respected elder who flogs, confronts, and uncovers fools. That one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scatter to feed poverty. Obatala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu. Abohu, Aboye, Aboshishe, Ashe. May our Ebo reach a rune. May our Ebo be accepted. May our Ebo allow what we desire to come to pass. And so we say, Ashe. Greetings and salutations, divine all blessed elevation, revelation, and manifestation You are now sitting again live with the Divine Prince, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagun Oloye Hoodoo Obeya Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective. Also welcome and respect and enjoy my cousin, the beloved Baba Awo, Chief Priest of IleIseseOladeji Inner Consciousness Spiritual Center, the beloved Oloye Ifawole, Oladeji Efuntade. We are certainly here with you and for you, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, my affirmation and reverberation, my reiteration, and it is my ever-living reality. All is a blessing is crucial to the very foundation of my inner standing, my teaching, my walk, my work along this divine, all blessed life path and journey. It is how I, the Divine Prince, make sense out of all that we're challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth. And it is my personal place of power and inner standing. It is the place from where I begin, from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co-create my divine destiny, and I alone create and co-create my divine all blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe. Today is Friday, April 30th, 2021. And we are emanating and vibrating with you and for you now live, virtually, verbally, cosmically, quantum universally from this working temple of the House of the Divine Prince. Thai Potions Hoodoo Central, Hoodoo Central in this legendary, historic, beautiful, and most enchanted city in America. And of course, my cousin is broadcasting from IleIseseOladeji Inner Consciousness Spiritual Center in the beautiful Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Again, we're always truly honored and grateful to be present, to be standing along with the legion of ancestors, standing to push forward a message, an energy, a love, an understanding that we believe is beneficial to ourselves and to our people in our community. It is indeed why I have been doing this broadcast for 11 years. I'm sorry, for 12 years on Blog Talk Radio. It is indeed why I began doing this broadcast through STREAMYARD at the beginning of last year, just before the pandemic. The ability to reach and communicate with those in our community who indeed desire and understand that our salvation is invested in our ancestors. It's rooted to our ancestors. It's rooted to their power and their ability to survive, to create, to recreate, to be present under all sorts of weather, all sorts of tragic conditions. For me, it's very hard to think about the ancestors and what they endured and then feel weak in today's environment and then feel shallow in today's environment. I feel like I owe them. I'm committed to them. I'm obligated to them to live up to the destiny that they might not have been allowed to reach, but indeed to live up to the destiny that they invested in each and every one of us. Oloye, I'm going to bring you on in, beloved. Please give your greetings and salutations, your message, and indeed we'll move forward with today's show.
Alafia. Greetings to everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. I hope everybody has done their prayers for this morning, given their honor to their ancestors, to their Ori, and today is the day of Ogun. So today we give honor and praise to Ogun and pray that Ogun will clear away any and all obstacles within ourselves that are holding us back from achieving our own highest destiny in this life. So, we honor Ogun, we honor Eshu. We ask Baba Eshu to please open up all of our good doors, roads, and paths, and all the good doors, roads, and paths of all those who we love, and to close down the doors, roads, and paths of anyone or anything that is meant to do harm to ourselves or anyone that we love. So I greet you all and in peace, and hope that everybody is doing well today.
Indeed. And I like how you invoked Ogun. Ogun been all over here all day, all over me, all over the house. I've gone from West African Igbo Ogun ceremony, Yoruba Ogun ceremony, Haitian Ogun ceremony, and indeed Louisiana Voodoo. And so, often in Voodoo, when Ogun comes through in the ceremony, he doesn't say a whole lot. Mm-hmm. His work is done through actions, through movement, through activity. And so I was really hard pressed to be able to broadcast today and talk with this Ogun energy just on me. Mm-hmm. But it opened up for me an awareness that many of us take Ogun, as well as the warriors, to be just that, warriors, to fight our battles, to defend against our enemies, to go after those who might seek us harm. And I think in that process, we neglect that all spirit must first pass through our own head. Mm-hmm. So we can't ask Ogun to exact justice where we lack justice. Mm-hmm. We can't ask Ogun to create foundation where we lack foundation. Mm-hmm. And so in Louisiana Voodoo, Ogun and Oshosi and a handful of other powers are really the foundation, if you will, and they represent really foundational elements to our progress, first as individuals, and then how we step out into the community and manifest. I was taught Ogun was the foundation. I was taught that Oshosi was direction. Mm-hmm. I was taught that there was fertility and power in Osane and Orisha Oko. So I want you to speak a little bit more to that today from a Ifa Yoruba perspective. I'll of course share some of my experiences personally and in Voodoo as it relates to Ogun and working with Ogun. And I invite the audience to please feel free to participate. If your webcam is connected and your mic is okay, you can join us here on screen. My cousin Paul Wooten, something is not connected. It's either your camera or your mic, but you are present and I can see you. I also invite Blog Talk Radio listeners to dial 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. Please be patient because I have to navigate more than one platform. So press the number 1 on your telephone keypad and I will unmute your mic. I'm also present in Blog Talk Radio chat as well. All is a blessing.
Wonderful. So when we talk about Ogun, we're talking about a very powerful Orisha. We're talking about, most people know him as an Orisha of war, an Orisha that is quick-tempered. Some of the stories of Ogun is he didn't wait to get all the full information. When he thought something wasn't where he thought it would be, then he was quick to cut, and then later on had to go back and realize that he acted too soon. One of the stories about him going into a town and nobody was talking. They were kind of smiling or giggling or laughing every time that he spoke to them. And then he thought that they were ridiculing him. and didn't realize that that particular town was a town that was where they do not talk. They had taboo of that. So instead, Ogun thought that they were just ignoring him and not paying attention to him and ridiculing him, and he wound up cutting people and severing aspects of their body. And then in doing that, it was given to him later that no, Baba, these people that they don't talk. They it's a town that is supposed to be quiet. And then, you know, lamenting, he had to lament on that. So one of the things that is very important for us is to make sure that we have full stories before we go into any action. Make sure that we are getting everything understood before we in our mind, in our heart, in our spirit, whatever, go and make action that might not be in alignment with what the reality is of a situation. Even in my life over the years, I've had to really be mindful and careful of that, as I'm one who was initiated to Ogun. Then I have to make sure that I'm doing that. In times that I didn't, it was a struggle, it was a challenge to make things right. So you have to make sure that when you're working with Ogun, that you can't let that energy of that warrior energy just go so high that you're not thinking before you're doing. You're not finding out information before you are going into action. That knowing that he's one, we always say that never has lost in battle, then we have a warrior with us that will cut away whatever it is that we're praying for. And so in that, we have to use it wisely, use that power wisely that is within us. And so with Ogun, you have to make sure that you can have some coolness along with that heat. So make sure that, you know, Ogun is that type of energy that will raise your energy up, and you'll have power that you never knew that you had. And so with that, you have to be mindful. You have to use wisdom in how you do this, right? So that's one facet that I think that we all should focus on when it comes to dealing with Ogun. You know, I know that certain lineages, especially in Lukumi, also they do warriors. So one of the warriors, you know, you have Ogun, you have Eshu, you have Ochosi, and I believe for some they also do Oshun. So, you know, with all of that, you're delving into now learning and growing with the energies that are being given to you through warriors. And you have to take the time to kind of embrace the energies, you know, but learn how to deal with the energies. Learn how to deal with the energies in a good way. You have to take your time. We say that you have to develop your relationship. You know, when we give somebody Ishefa, I tell them for the first 6 months to a year, you got to develop your relationship. And developing your relationship means that there might be a lot of changes and turmoil that you simply do not understand that winds up happening, going on. Some of the things that you think you're here, you're not maybe here. You're someplace else. And Ifa forces you, Orisha forces you to work on those things within yourself and have to face what you have to face in order to grow, to heal, to move forward with, you know, with your life. And you see so many different things, people making choices and decisions that they don't even understand. Because now that relationship, even if you're not working on that relationship, those Orisha are working on relationship within you. So you get an Orisha like Ogun, and that has that type of energy, and you find yourself getting frustrated quicker, or, you know, the energy, you're more quick to go and deal with something. You got to be able to manage it and lay back a little bit and make sure that what it is that you're getting ready to say, your actions, your walk, your talk, your everything is in alignment with what the reality of a situation is. So that's one facet of Ogun. You know, another facet of Ogun, we talk about the story of when the Orumile were coming down to earth, and Obatala was sent down, but the rope wasn't long enough, and they went to Ogun, and Ogun forged together the chain that was able to take him the rest of the way, right? At least until he got to the part he had the treaty and all that. We'll get into all that at a later time. The whole story of how the Orumile came down and all the facets to that. But when we talk about that chain, we're talking about a chain that is strong enough that links temporal to Olorun, in essence, because in essence that rope and that chain lead us back to our own selves up in heaven. Again, it's like dealing with Ori. That is our higher self that manifests from here, from the temporal up to Olorun. So now we're talking about how does that link us? That links us back to our ancestors, huh? So now when we're talking about that chain, we can easily be talking about the DNA, and the DNA not just from our people here on earth, but our DNA that leads us to Olorun and to the Creator himself. So there's so many different facts and facets and intertwining with working with these Orisha that once you learn to go deeper in working with the Orisha and understanding, I call it overstanding, trying to overstand the Orisha and how it manifests in the different capacities and facets. Then we begin to learn to understand ourselves and learn to understand how all of these things, how all these forces work into place. Because Orisha is always Ori. It's already in our Ori, that nature that we're trying to bring out, that maybe that Orisha sees this person is not fighting for himself. So now he needs Ogun to take him the rest of the way. He needs Shango to take him this way. Maybe he's been hurt in life many, many times. He needs Oshun. He needs Olokun to heal. He needs Yemoya to nurture himself. Maybe he needs Shango to develop still the ability to fight, but on a different capacity, because Shango is one capacity while Ogun is another. They say Shango will be coming from like the heavens, and while Ogun is here on earth, right? And then you have Oya to develop and form that fight and that transformation within yourself. So just a little bit of how do we in a practical sense, I try to do this thing in a practical manner without, I don't have a billion verses, but in a practical manner, how do I work with these forces of energy? How do I work with this wisdom of nature in order to, in myself, and then in those who I'm working with, to help them to grow, to expand, to evolve, and to heal in whatever areas of life they might be doing, and to achieve all that they've come here to achieve.
Listen, I'm grateful always when you teach, and particularly from your perspective, because I say that all the time. We seem to think that we can access people, powers, things without building a relationship. Particularly when it comes to Orisha or Loa, or Abasan, in any of the powers that are represented in ATR. But we also have this idea in the West that we can use them somehow separate from ourselves, without self-examination, without growing personally and evolving along our own spiritual evolutionary path. And so we send Orisha out after our enemies. We send Orisha out on these chores to bring us back things, to bring us back people, with this sort of disconnection that we are actually the living embodiment of not just the ancestors, but these powers, and that they help us to become our God self. They help us to become our best self. I also want to say, while I have a moment, I'm truly honored to have two cousins and my mama sitting in the room right now. So I have Oloye, I have my cousin Paul Marshall from Denver, Colorado. He's also here with us. And I have my mom here, of course, the beloved evangelist Gary Von Savage. And I'm grateful. Tasha is like family because I've probably known Tasha longer than anybody on the internet. She was one of the very first people that I followed and shared with a few decades back. I won't call any particular date, but she's been there the whole time, and I appreciate her. And I want you all to support her and her artistry. Her ministry comes through her artistry. So she makes jewelry out of organic, natural healing things, flowers, crystals, and of course we greatly appreciate her. So thank you, Tosh. Thank you, Oshun Yemi too. We certainly appreciate you. And of course, the phone lines are open at 845-277-9143. Do press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and I will bring you into the conversation. Paul, if you have a question, comment, or request, I can see you, so just raise your hand and I'll bring you back on screen, okay? And smile for me. Yeah, yes. Ogu, particularly in Voodoo, is very popular. As I said a little earlier, Voodoo, in a Voodoo demonstration of Ogu, in a possession, in a ceremony, he's very demonstrative. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of activity, and often other people, just like in church, are touched by the spirit of Ogu, and Ogu will attempt to come through various individuals in the ceremony. And those of you who watched the video that I played before the show, there was one woman who was manifesting but didn't quite come through, and they shut her down. And I've seen the very same thing happen in your sanctified, evangelical, spiritual, tongue-speaking churches, where other spirits come through other than the Holy Spirit, other than that which is necessary or needed in that moment. And we have ways of cooling or calming those spirits down. Sometimes spirit comes in, as my cousin said, to heal, to fix, to repair. And that requires a time of being quiet, being still, being humble, being willing to hear, and being willing to be operated on, if I can use that word, by God, by the spirits, so that we can evolve. In Voodoo, Ogu is often not by himself. And I believe that might be the same scenario in Lukumi. Typically, there's at least 1 or 2 other powers that are often represented with Ogu or present with Ogu. And again, I teach that is foundation, that is direction, that is discipline, and that is work. The 4 cardinal points, if you will, of our spiritual development. So I honor Ogu. Ogu has been present for me much of my life in many dramatic ways. But it's always a sign to be still when he shows up for me, to be quiet, to pay attention to what's going on around me. And sometimes, yes, it is an alert, that people are seeking to block you, stop you, harm you. But as my cousin said, I don't get caught up in the carnality of the feeling. Oh man, I'm upset, I'm worked up, I'm mad, I got to do something now, I got to go back after these people. That's usually the last case resort. Often I look at what my foundation is. Is my foundation sure? Am I clear about my own direction? Because ultimately we can't control what other people do, what other people say, what other people choose. Only what I choose, only what I say, only what I believe. I create and recreate my reality. So we often are exhausting and wasting energy that is being funneled to us from the spirit realm for our own personal development. And it becomes a distraction when it's the people, the places, the things outside of us. And then we give that power and responsibility by saying, that's why I'm not where I want to be. That's why I'm stuck. That's why I'm not moving forward. So there has to be a period of isolation. Paul knows this better than anybody. There was a time where I was completely isolated. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I didn't visit anybody. One of the few visitors that I had was Paul at my door early in the morning to make sure I was getting up and handling my business. But during that time, I probably consumed thousands of books. During that time, I did the work, the shadow work, digging up what I didn't like, digging up what was causing me harm, digging up what was creating a block for me. And it was in that same season that my mother got her freedom. And she was able to break the curse of domestic violence and be stuck in a controlling, oppressive, prison-like marriage. And so I saw things not only change for me, but begin to change for people all around me. Even people who had no understanding of Oloye, even people who had no understanding of Orisha, even people who had no understanding of what I was doing. And I've been doing this a long time, a really long time. And so I'm confident in the power of the ancestors and the power of spirit to move us to where we need to be if we would just get out of the way.
Yeah, and also we have to understand that there's a dynamic that happens when we're trying to elevate ourselves spiritually. We have to then learn that we are having to cut away so many things that maybe have stopped us from moving forward in ourselves. Let's leave alone what others have done. Let's just begin the process of ourselves, and what in ourselves has to be cut away in order for us to move beyond and forward. Ogun is the one that we say he removes our obstacles, clears our paths, so that we can move unimpededly moving forward. So then we have to have this honest look about our own selves and our own lives, our own choices, our own decisions, and how these choices and decisions got us to the place that we are now. And then we have to then be honest about it in order for us to go inside to cut these things away. So when you share that the Orisha kind of works sometimes in tandem, there's story after story after story about how maybe Ogun worked with Obatala, how this particular energy, how Ogun married Oshun. He was married to Oshun before she married to Shango. And how maybe Shango and Oya, how they are inseparable and they work so close together. So a lot of times we have this Orisha working with this Orisha to hit things from both sides of the equation in order for us to be able to do what we need to do to heal, to clear, to cleanse, all of those things. I believe you would call that shadow work. So you then, in regard to this work, it is extremely difficult at times. You lose people. You lose
family.
You lose so much sometimes. But if they're true to you, they'll come back to you. Over this last couple of months, I will share. I feel like I've lost so much because I've had to settle down and to study even deeper because of the position that I'm placed in. And unfortunately, it hurts. But I look forward to the time that now the other side of this comes to be. It's not always this, because nothing lasts forever. We can't look at the pain and the struggle and the hurt. We have to look and keep our eyes. They say keep your eyes on the prize, right? So you got to keep your eyes on the destination that you're wanting to achieve after going through this time. I like the song that Yolanda Adams sings, that the battle is not yours, right? We say the battle is not yours, it belongs to Ifa. So the battle not all the time is the battle that you are seeing here on the temporal side. The battle sometimes is at a higher place, a higher cosmic level that maybe you're not seeing or understanding. And that's why I love what the ancestors and the elders said. And you said it as well. They used to tell us all the time, be still.
Be still.
Yes.
Be still.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I appreciate that. Anthony X asks, what is power? And why is power?
What is what?
What is power?
Oh, what is power?
Power.
And why do we seek power? Power is that which is within you. This is only my perspective, because my cousin might have a different perspective. Power is that which is within you that allows you to manifest your freedom and your growth spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, all aspects of life. Power is the ability to stand firm in your belief. Also, though, to seek truth. And when you find truth, that truth then becomes a different level of power. Power is that you don't allow anybody to knock you off of your square. Power is the ability to be humble, even when you have the knowledge, the strength, and everything to be able to take advantage of somebody else and to manifest that over people. There's power in humility. Power is the understanding of loving self and loving others, even through the grime and the mess and the dirt and the struggle, and being able to tell them the truth.
Yes.
I'll go to my cousin on the rest.
I say every show, I create and recreate my reality.
Mm-hmm.
I am because my ancestors are. I am because the Most High is. So for me, power is the ability to create and recreate the reality that mirrors your best image. Power is the ability to rise above our animal nature, our carnal nature, our lower frequencies, and operate as gods and goddesses while still inhabiting this physicality, this physical body. Power is indeed the ability to apply your skill, your talent, your knowledge, your information, your awareness to not only recreate and to shape and recreate your own reality, but that of those around you, within your community, within your family, within your village. Power is us operating at our best selves. Power is us operating at our highest selves. And when you are indeed operating at your highest self, then you know there are times when you must be humble, when you must be quiet, when you must be still. Particularly when I think about parenting. You know, parents wield a great deal of power over a child, but there's a way to administer that power that's nurturing, that's helpful, that's beneficial, that empowers the child so that the child grows up to be an empowered individual. But when you don't know where your power is and you don't know where your power comes from, then you are seeking it in material things, in money things, in having 100,000 followers, but you only posting nonsense. You know, that's a misuse of power, if not a complete denial of the fact that you have power. I
That's
often say that each and every one of you under the sound of my voice, you got internet, you got webcam, you got microphone, you got a device. That's power.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what are you doing with it?
Mm-hmm.
How are you utilizing it? Now, some of us are master researchers, so we're studying, we're learning, and then we're sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And then others are creating and recreating and presenting a reality that many of you didn't think was possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still being told every day that many don't think it's possible to live a life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, the way you do, cousin, and Ifa, and the way I demonstrate in Voodoo. We're still dealing with generations who did not know that there was an option
Mm-hmm.
to organized religion,
That's correct.
and I shouldn't say organized religion, because that gives people somehow the idea that Voodoo and Ifa is not organized. And indeed, it's organized. It's not just a thrown together tapestry buffet. There's indeed complex components to this, but so too
Correct.
are we. So too are we, complex, with multiple components that must be addressed. And so that's why there are a myriad, some say 401 Oloye, some say 401 Orisha, and Orumale. Thank you for correcting me, Orumale. So there are those forces that are specific to our needs, specific to our journey. I often say the illusion of isolation, the illusion of a block, an issue, a complication, often has nothing more to do with than how we see things, what we believe is available to us, how much power, Anthony, we believe we have to overcome and to change. And I also wanted to say before I forget, in response to what my cousin said, it's not about guilt. He didn't say that. I'm saying it. It's not about guilt. It's not about beating yourself up. It's not about, feeling some sense of remorse because I didn't do or say or act a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That is all now a memory. And we have an opportunity in this moment to stand in our power and create and recreate a reality for ourselves, for our children, for our peers, that many of us are waiting for someone to show us, waiting for someone to demonstrate. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for power.
Absolutely.
And knowing that I have power and that I'm not a victim.
Power is the ability to say I'm sorry when you're wrong. Power is the ability to accept an apology from somebody else when they were wrong, when they wrong you, and then giving them an opportunity to correct that which the error was made upon. Power is your control over your life in a positive sense. It is to control over your thinking. It is to control over your actions. It is to control over the intertwining of the two. Sometimes your mind says something and your body follows it, where if your mind had the discipline, then your body would be like, let me hold back. This might not be what it seems to be in my own mind and thought. And especially when you're talking about Ogun, you don't want to make things so bad and cut things so bad, cut people so bad that there is no room for correction, no room for being able to heal what was destroyed. Just as important, power is healing. Whatever is broken, you have the power, the energetic force to be healing as well. Don't ever think that power is just one-sided. Power is on both sides. You ever had a person who's yelling and screaming and hollering and all this, and you can stand there and just stand there and look at them, knowing that you're not in a particular place of danger, but your power was the power to be able to maintain. you then have actually taken the balance away from a person. In martial arts, it is the mastery of balance. But balance is something that we find in all areas of life. When you can master a person's balance, you've mastered them and you've mastered the situation.
Ashe, Ashe. And again, I want to remind everyone, we appreciate your participation. Turn on your web, turn on your mic. You can also call me on the phone lines at 845-277-9143, 845-277-9143, and be a part of this conversation. One of the hardest demonstrations of power I had to enact in my own life was being still, being quiet, being willing to look through my tragedy, my pain, my past, my upbringing, and realize that I could find and generate the power to recreate my reality. I want my listeners to know there was a time I did not believe that. Mm-hmm. There was a time I was depressed, clinically depressed. There was a time I was suicidal and didn't think that there was anything worth living for, anything worth fighting for. So you can indeed gain and regain your power to heal. Mm-hmm. I don't care what your age is. I don't care what decade you were born in. You indeed have the power to heal and recreate the reality that you seek and you desire right now. And listen, I know this show and the last show ain't magical enough for some of you. It ain't witchy enough for some of you. But you can't even explore all of that witchy stuff you all are so drawn to without power. And to go into that an empty vessel, thinking that you're going to manipulate items and objects and plants and candles and roots to create something outside of yourself that you have not made room within yourself to receive is an illusion.
Magic is the healing. It's in the healing. It's in these things. If you don't have these things, you don't have the energetic strength to be able to change the situations and to change people's lives or whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing what you do. But the energetic power is your strength. It is your magic. It is your magic. Those people that do that high level, what we say high level of magic, it is because they've done the work inside themselves, right, wrong, or indifferent, that they feel the confidence and the power behind what they do, the work behind what they do. They may have gone to higher sources and have gotten different initiations and different things to have certain power and knowledge in order for that, but it doesn't do anything if you don't have the right view, the right energy, the right clearing in yourself for the magic to manifest through you. That's the true magic.
Yes. Yes. I have a friend who's quite talented, and in my opinion, posts some really interesting stuff in social media, but wonders why his presence isn't growing. Wonders why people aren't following him. He's not friendly. He does not exude an energy that is communicative. Mm-hmm. I often speak about the virtual reality. For indeed, this is virtual. You are virtually in my house. We are sharing together. But there's a presence that we bring in our own lives that people respond to, whether it's in a video, whether it's in a picture, whether it's hearing your voice. And often that is what people are most attracted to. We wonder, why is it that the foolishness gets the most likes? But sometimes it's just the ability to laugh and to laugh at yourself. Sometimes it's just the ability to be human and humanize ourselves. When we're operating in anger and bitterness and regret and competition and ego, it's hard to see beyond that illusion towards that which is in our best interest, that which mirrors us. Some of my revolutionary partners and friends spend 98% of their waking hour being angry, being upset, being down with the devil, kill the devil, you know. And I understand the emotion, but there has to be a point where we come out of our feelings and then go into our higher consciousness, our higher energy centers. And that's power, beloved. That's power. Picking and choosing your battles.
That's
knowing
right.
when to go into war versus going into discussion.
The other part to that is the clearing away of the blockages that are in your life. You know, I use Chinese medicine as the example a lot of times. Chinese medicine, when you go to, I go to a acupuncturist. When I go to the acupuncturist, I tell him this and this is the problem that I'm seeing. I'm having problems here, I'm having problems there. He doesn't go directly to that spot like in Western medicine. He goes to totally other spots. And when he goes to those other spots, he sees if there is sensitivity and all of that. And when he touches that spot, and that spot is very sensitive, he then says, your kidneys are this, but your blockage is here, here, and here. We have to clear out the blockages in order for you to have what you're supposed to have at that place that's causing you pain. So we have to look at Ogun as the ability to clear our blockages in order for the right energy to come into the area of our full healing. We have to look at Ogun. What are the healing aspects? The healing aspects is to clear away, to remove the obstructions, to remove the blockages from our path, from the blood flow, from our energy, in order for us to be able to move forward and achieve what it is that we're here to achieve. I hope you guys, are understanding what I'm saying on that. We don't just look at Ogun as just this person, the fighting aspect. No, we have to look at Ogun on the healing aspect too. We have to have a balance. We have to have the duality. We have to have the polarity, the proper polarity that will allow us to see things from a wider view.
No warrior is in warrior mode 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There has to be a period of rest. There has to be a period of recuperation. There has to be a period of preparation, diet, exercise, activity. There's so many other degrees of who and what Ogun is that we miss in our Orisha romance, in our appropriation of these powers. Again, we use them almost like servants. I can just buy this candle and apply this oil and make the ancestors do what I need, make the Orisha do what I need, make the Loa do what I need. And we often do it without looking at our own hands, looking at our own activity, looking at our own position. And let's be clear, no one sees everything 306 degrees. So in our desire to want to battle and curse and do harm to the next one, be sure that your hands are clean. Be sure that you can see 360 degrees how that energy leaves you and then returns back to you. And so these are aspects of Ogun that you don't necessarily hear, or it's not taught in the middle of a ceremony. I mean, we're too busy drumming and feeding the spirits, and paying attention to the activity ourselves to teach while the ceremony is going on. So often the instruction comes in the initiation. The instruction comes in the mentorship that you have with your Mambo, your Hogan, your Voodoo practitioner, your Awo, your Orisha priest, your Babalao. It is really there that the work happens. It's the stories that I was taught. It's their experiences that I was taught. It was reading those contexts to the Odus that you don't get in the middle of a ceremony, where I really gained my understanding of what power was, how it manifests in me, and then how the powers within the spirit realm assist us in those endeavors. And I often say, quantum metaphysically speaking, that the universe must create and recreate what we say, what we believe. It has to. So those of us who believe that it's all bad and that there's nothing to be trusted, the universe has to re-demonstrate that to you. It's a divine law. And those of us who believe that there's always an answer, there's always power, there's always an out, there's always opportunity, the universe has to demonstrate that. My cousin Paul has seen me do that for maybe 30 years or more. He's seen me come out of the worst scenarios, come out of blocks that nobody thought I would overcome, only to not just move forward, but to keep rising, keep rising, keep rising. And so that's why I do this. For those who have doubt, for those who are dealing with hurt, for those who are dealing with pain, for those who feel like there are no other options, for those who feel like they are powerless, that's why I do this. Those who feel unloved, those who are motherless, fatherless, I've walked that reality. I've lived that reality. And you said something about family earlier. You know, those families really mean you good, will still stand up and stand by. And my mom and Paul and many other members of my family indeed have stood up and stood by, even when they had no clue about what I was doing. Even when they had no understanding about what's all of this voodoo stuff. But at the same time, I have family members who don't communicate with me now at all. They seem to have preferred when I was struggling, when I was on the street, when I was desperate. And let me be clear, they weren't there to aid me then, and they would not be here to aid me now. But they have distanced themselves. They have gone quiet because I stood up so strongly in this voodoo ministry. And for many of our families, that's a problem. And I think it's a problem when we can love our children through crime, through drug addictions, through domestic violence, you know, but we can't love our children through diverse sexual identities. We can't love our children through diverse religious and spiritual belief systems. I have a young lady, I won't call her name. I talked to her yesterday, and she's engaged. Been engaged for a very long time, but her soon-to-be husband don't want nothing visibly indigenous, African, or spiritual in the house. Nothing in the house. So you know, my first question is, beloved, queen, goddess, stand up. Is this a part of who you are or not? And if so, how do you then proceed into a relationship with a man who only wants parts of you and not all of you? And often we're acting in that mode. We only present the parts we think people want, we think people need, we think are most acceptable, and then we conceal and hide everything else. I've been there. I've been there. I've dressed like this, barefooted, and sat on the piano in the church, sat on the organ in the church, collected my $200 at the end of the service, you know, barefoot and African, and was still in denial of myself, you know, still trying to fit into a corner that wasn't in my best interest, wasn't for me. So it alarms me, especially when a goddess, because I believe the Black woman is God. Queen, stand up in who you are. Goddess, stand up in who you are. I don't understand maintaining relationships where you can only be part of who you are and you have to tuck it away. The good thing is, I believe, since they aren't married, she got an opportunity to change this.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to show her what the future looked like and what the future might be, you know. And so she has an opportunity to now stand up in her truth. And she may still be able to save this relationship. But if you can't speak to who you are, you can't expect anyone else to speak to who you are. If you can acknowledge your pain, your truth, your power, your inabilities, you can't expect anyone else to acknowledge your pain, your power, your inabilities. And so when I was confronted with what I didn't have, when I was confronted with what I needed, I asked for it. I sought it out. And sometimes that meant moving from city to city, town to town, state to state. I was very unstable in my teens and in my 20s. I didn't stay anywhere 90 days, anywhere. And the minute the cash flow stopped or the job wasn't quite right or I moved on. I'm blessed. I was protected. I was covered. I didn't become a statistic. Nothing crazy really happened to me. Well, I had some crazy events, but I'll tell you about that later. But I kept moving towards a goal that was so real to me, so real. Some of you think I just started talking about voodoo yesterday. My mama would tell you I've been talking about voodoo my entire life. Paul would tell you I've been talking about voodoo my entire life. This ain't new. This ain't yesterday. This ain't brand new. And as my cousin said, being willing to do the work, to study, to read, to learn, to sit at elders' feet, to hear the experiences and stories of others, for me, that's a blessing. I don't have to repeat your mistake if I'm willing to sit and listen to it honestly and filter that through my own body. I don't have to follow that mistake. And that's often the role that our parenting and our elders should play. Now, a celebrity the other day said, all elders are a demonstration for us to benefit from. All elders. Mm-hmm. Good or bad, right or wrong, left or right. Some elders are a demonstration of what we should not do, what we should not become, the directions we should not take. And other elders provide us with clear direction, clear understanding. So there's a benefit to listening to all elders. And as a young guy on the street, I often had the time to do that, to listen to the elder, to listen to the wino, to listen to the story of the drug addict, to listen to the stories of the prostitute, to listen to the stories of other abused and abandoned young people and children who also were on the street, to hear other people's story. And still I maintained my focus on where I was headed. But all of that benefited me. It meant that didn't have to happen to me. It meant that I don't have to go down that road. I still don't understand how in 2021, is crack really still around? I mean, really, I thought that was so 1990s. I really did. And how does an individual find themselves in that position today with all that we can see? I mean, it's on TV, for God's sakes. Intervention, the cops, the police stories. How do we still fall into demonstrations that are not in our best interest with all these witnesses around us? We see it in families. Some people say it's to be expected. Alcoholism falls down through the family. Drug addiction falls down through the family. Abuse follows through the family. That's not true. I'm the living witness of that. Everything my father is, I refused to be. I refused to become. And for a while, as a young person, I was very unbalanced because I wasn't able to accept or receive that of my father, which was actually beneficial to me. I was just obsessed with what was wrong, the abuse, the violence, his drug behavior, his alcohol behavior, his pedophilic and molestation behavior. And so I just wanted to cut it all out from the root. I wasn't willing to see what was beneficial. And my dad can count, Oloye, my dad can count huge numbers in his head without paper and a calculator. My dad had impeccable memory. I talk like he dead. He's not dead, but I talk like he dead. Impeccable memory, sharp street skills. So I know that saved my life while I was out there, but I couldn't see it at the time. I didn't want to hear it at the time. Paul will tell you, I didn't want to hear Mother's Day. I didn't want to hear Father's Day. I didn't want to hear anything that reminded me of family. For over a decade, my family didn't even know if I was alive or dead. They didn't know where I was, what I was doing, until Wapani made them hire someone to find me. And then I came back to the surface. But I came back a whole new person. And it was a process. Even with me and my mother had the best relationship now. Perfect relationship now. But we had to relearn each other. Indeed, the church folks say born again. I was indeed born again. I was a whole nother person. And one of the benefits of Facebook, if there's a benefit, almost anyone who's alive, who has social media, that I went from kindergarten with until who we are now, is somewhere scattered in my Facebook. And I find that interesting because these people knew who I was in high school and junior high school and elementary school, and they're seeing my demonstration today.
Yes.
And often they don't speak up, but their children do. Their nieces and nephews do. Their cousins do. And I take that with great honor, great honor. There are people in this room, Chef Bougie, Arisha, their whole family is with me. There are others in this room, the whole family, not just one person, the whole family. And so I'm seeing the reality of my own dream, where we realize that ATR traditions are indeed an option to what has been presented to us for the last 500 years. It's indeed a saving grace for many of us. I don't sort of know all the hardships of my cousin Oloye, his story, but I'm sure he has them. And so he probably would agree with me that Ifa has been a saving grace for him, just as Voodoo has been a saving grace for me. And I don't feel trapped. I don't feel like a victim. I don't feel like I have to just accept what's being, spewed out. And sometimes we get stuck. Black revolutionary brothers and sisters, we get stuck. And yes, there are things that need to be fixed, that need to be demolished. Racism needs to be demolished. White supremacy needs to be expunged and what's the word I'm looking for? Exorcised like a demon. But it doesn't stop us in the meantime from perfecting our own God selves, from really building up who we are. And that's why I told that Black Panther story. We have politicized Black Panther movement, and we forget about the health component that they had, the mental health component that they had, the grassroots community component that they had. Do many of you know there was no free lunch in school until the Black Panther Party created that? They weren't concerned about that until the Black Panther Party created that. And so they demonized that movement, but stole all the good that they created and brought to the community. And so we as individuals had that same ability to steal all the good from this oppressive system so that we can build and repair ourselves and each other. I like forgiveness. I love forgiveness. Some of y'all think I'm really hard and aggressive. No, I'm probably one of the most forgiving people y'all would ever know. My clients, I've had clients talk crazy to me. I've had family members talk crazy to me, and I'm still here. This is still here. So, man, I'm really in my feelings today, emotionally, in a good way. I've been just caught up in Ogu since maybe 3 this morning. I've been everything is Ogu. I've cleaned the shrines for Ogu. I've fed Ogu. I've laid on the floor prostrate before Ogu. And I'm grateful for that ability to to cut away those things that inhibit me. I'm not coming at y'all with the machete. That's an illusion. I got two friends right now that are battling in Twitter, and it's so irritating. They both are representing tradition. They both are representing ATR, but it's an argument. It's a battle. It's so exhausting and it's so draining. I don't have time to battle you. I'm still battling me. The war is still going on in me. Ogu is still cutting the ties for me to those things that don't serve me, those things that don't benefit me, those things that will otherwise hold me back, those things that would otherwise block me. And my mama and my grandmama used to say, boy, your mouth is going to get you in a world of trouble. I've been mouthy since I was a child. Since maybe 1 or 2, I've been mouthy. But I've learned to use the power, just like Maya Angelou. You all know Maya Angelou's story. She was raped as a child, and she told it. And some of her family members went after this man, and this man ultimately died. And she held herself responsible for that. And so she went mute. And Maya Angelou didn't talk for years. And it was probably in that time that literary power that she now possesses, even from the heavens, stood up in her. So I had to learn that, yes, I got power on my tongue, but I can use it to my benefit, or I can use it for my demise. So I'm very careful about what I say. My callers, my initiates, my godchildren, they'll tell you, Prince is very exacting, very careful about what I say, very careful about what I repeat, very careful about what I reiterate. And my all is a blessing mantra has everything to do with that. I'd much rather say all is a blessing. I would much rather invoke all is a blessing than to repeat something that's not beneficial, that's not for me or those who the sound of my voice might fall upon. So that sort of silent mode that Ogu sometimes operates in. And sometimes he makes noises in the voodoo ceremony, you know, like a man at hard work, like a man pounding steel, like a man cutting wood, you know. And so for me, it again represents us doing that work to rebuild, you know, this physical shack and turn it into a castle, turn it into a temple that you indeed honor and show appreciation. It's very disrespectful to your temple to hold destructive energy. It destroys your house, not mine. It's very detrimental to hold wickedness within your temple. It destroys your house, not mine. It's very detrimental to hold unhealthy, unkind, unloving thoughts and feelings and emotions about yourself or other people within your temple. It destroys your house, not mine, not the next person. So yes, we're angry at the system. Yes, we're angry at the oppressor. Yes, we're angry at racism and white supremacy. But be sure we're not degrading ourselves and each other at the same time. Now, that's what Ogu references and reinforces for me, cousin. Those are the kind of things that I keep getting that knock from Ogu about. Hold your tongue, be still, make sure you got your foundation together, make sure your scaffolding is secure before I take an action, before I make a move.
Absolutely. You know, you look at the tools that are with Ogun, you know, the anvil, the hammer, the machete, you know, the rake, the pick, the pry, they all have a meaning. They all have a definition to it. And so when you are working with these Orisha, you would, you know, you don't realize the symbolism of what is going inside of these Orisha when you're getting either receiving it or getting initiated to it. So we have to now look at what is it that is actually being given to us metaphysically and all cosmology, all that is being given to us, the symbologies. What do the symbologies represent? So we look at the characteristics of whatever Orisha it is and the tools that they give us to use with that Orisha. Why do they give us, an anvil? That signifies the earth's ability to transform man, right? Each thing has its own entity to be able to give to you the tools to overcome your struggles, your obstacles, trials, tribulations, all of the above. A lot of people hold anger. And Ogun, it's not wise to hold the anger in. It doesn't result into anything, right? In Ogundameji, Odu number 9, which gives the carnation of Ogun, it comes through in Ogunda. It says anger does not do anything for anyone. Patience is the father of good character, right? And it says those who develop patience will enjoy long life. So what is it saying? If I was given the message that not to hold in all of those things that are you're struggling with, not to hold them in, because by holding them in, it festers within you. And when it festers within you, then you can generate illness within yourself. You generate you generate not just illness, but you generate illness outside. When it comes in Orun, it's saying not just that there's illness in you, but there's illness maybe in a relationship. There's illness in the energy around you, surrounding you, in your job, in this and that, whatever. You got to really go in deep to understand how these entities are working within your life.
Ashe. Beloved, please, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Otan? Ifawole?
Oh my God.
Did you have a question or a comment, or you just listening?
I think she's just listening. That's my cousin.
Oh, okay.
I was late and I was just listening. Greetings, Aburo Boye, Baba Oloye. Greetings to you as well. Very unexpected. Hi. I just was trying to sneak on in and listen. I didn't want to miss out. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
Be sorry for it. We're grateful that you're here. All is a blessing. Paul, did you have a question or a comment?
I'm just happy to be here, and I've gotten a better understanding of. I'm getting a better understanding of my own pathology, and of course my journey, and I'm grateful, and I know that this is a new season. One of the things that I have to tell people, and many people are confused about my relationship with you as from the day, and I always tell people, the Divine Prince has been through more things than you can imagine. Someone who's been inside of the church knows the church better than most preachers. Mm-hmm. And so when I can feel and know when the presence of goodness, of a divine power that's in someone. And I've met that in that day, that night, at that place called the Matchmaker. And that was a social club that I had met. We met, and from across the room, I knew that this was somebody who was going to exemplify something that was greater than, and so from that day on, we've known each other since 1993. Mm-hmm. And so I just know that the message I'm hearing today has been a steadfast message from Ty since the day I met him. And so I'm just blessed to know Ty, to be honest. And I thank all of the people that's here listening, and then Ty's mom, who I've had the pleasure of meeting her in Denver. And I tell people, we only found out that we had a family connection based on DNA that comes through. But even before that, it's always been there. So I just thank God that I've had these opportunities to listen in and get a better perspective of what I'm dealing with and where I'm falling short.
Well, we appreciate it, and we're here for you, beloved.
Yes, yes. I thank you guys.
That DNA is a beast.
Yeah.
It's funny because the people that were on between Otun and your cousin Paul, me and you, that's how all of us kind of met the same way. My cousin reached me through DNA. Me and you reached each other through DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's saying that you two, even though you knew each other beforehand, it connected even deeper, DNA. It's all about Ogun today, right? As we said before, Ogun is that DNA link, that DNA lineage, that linkage from the chain. When you look at the DNA chain, you're looking at a chain that looks like a ladder, right? So therefore, we're talking about Ogun. That's what we brought forth. The energy of Ogun is here with us today.
Ashe. And in Voodoo, we often say Ogu is technology.
Oh, yes, we do too.
When we think of the machete and the cauldron pot, those are some of the simplest but earliest forms of technology. Tools that improve our life and our lifestyle and our way of being. Anthony asks, can we speak to the power and relevance of alchemy and energy transmission? I know in Ifawole that might be airway, and how we might apply herbs, plants, roots to particular, not just physical ailments, but spiritual ailments. And we do a very similar thing in Voodoo. So it might not quite be that Eurocentric definition of what alchemy is. But alchemy absolutely came out of Africa, where technology was being utilized and manifest. We know that the ancient Kemetic people and even those before had a deep understanding of mixing of various substances to create powerful things. Have you heard of the Baghdad battery? It is now being said that ancient Egypt not only had electricity, but had the ability to make batteries. And so that comes out of that. What was once referred to as alchemy is sort of a mixture of chemistry and herbology and metallurgy and technology and applying these substances that we find in earth to create tools and higher substances that we can utilize and benefit. So that's my response to alchemy and energy transmission.
Yeah, and since we're speaking about Ogun, it's interesting that this question came up because many of the Ogun priests specialize in the medicines. And that means they specialize then in knowledge of the herbs and all of that to be able to make appropriate medicine, the Onishegun, to be able to formulate the medicines. Some specialize in making the soaps and all of those things. And inside of all of this, you have to have the appropriate herbs and different things in order for you to facilitate what it, for the soap, the medicine, to facilitate what it's supposed to for a person. So we use it for soaps. We use it We use it for the omiero. We make the omiero out of several herbs, along with the fresh water. And then we have people to be able to bathe in the omiero and to cleanse themselves, which cleanses the energy and all of that around them, within them, the ori and all of that. We also have the medicines that can change, even body types and all that stuff. There's a medicine for many things in Ifa, and those that specialize in it, they have so many different ways to use the herbs. So many different. They're like the original doctors in essence.
Yeah.
So with that, then the alchemy that we have a deep relationship with alchemy, and the energy that all of that, the energy change, the alchemy brings forth the energy changes, that and our own inner work.
And of course, that's similar to voodoo, West African voodoo, Haitian voodoo, and Louisiana voodoo. But somehow here in the West, we only want to focus on zombies and the ability to take substances and create zombies. That has been sort of sensationalized and made fodder for entertainment and movies and books and whatnot, while at the same time denying the power thereof, that we have an ability to take earth and use it to not only heal, but to harm. And again, Anthony, that's power. That's power. Tony Val, my partner, likes to say, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And that's Big Mama. And so Big Mama's ability to put her, foot in the pot and them greens be so good, put her special take on that cake or that cornbread or that meal. We say, oh, it's just food and anybody can cook cornbread. Oh, no, not like Big Mama. Big Mama's food was healing, was nurturing, and you felt and received the love and the energy, even from that alchemical process. We don't think of cooking as alchemy, but indeed it is. Particularly when we look at baking and having where's Chef Bougie? Just the right substances, the right amount of this, the right amount of that. It's a thin line between a brick and something that's indeed edible.
And it's direct transmission, isn't it? Because when we're fortunate enough to be in the kitchen when we're young with mom or with grandmother, with great grandmother, and they're showing us, they're not measuring nothing. You ask them what the measurements are, and they're looking at you crazy, but they're putting this and that and this and that. Taste a little bit, put that more in there, and then you look at the health that we had back then. Half of these illnesses and sicknesses wasn't manifesting back then.
That's right.
And we said that what they were eating might have been not the healthiest because they were using ham hocks and this, that, and the other thing. But yet many of them at their many of them, they were living till 90s and 100. And here today, we got all these struggles with our health because we're not eating in the same manner that our elders and ancestors were making the food. I think we talked about that last week with Chef.
That's right. Anthony X, I need you to call in or pop in on the screen. I thought we understood your question entirely, especially based on your response. There are indeed plants, herbs that have to be prepared a certain way or they would be poison. They could kill you. And they have to be processed before we eat them. One of the most common things that comes to my mind first is pufferfish. Now we see that in China, we see that in the Caribbean, we see that in Jamaica. Almost anywhere you can find a pufferfish, there's somebody eating it. But there's a process by taking the poison out or taking what would otherwise be poisonous about the fish and transforming it into something that is edible, and in some cases even medicine. Now there are a lot of herbs, roots, plants, that are growing up in all of your yards right now that could otherwise be medicine or poison, depending on your knowledge, depending on your education, depending on your awareness. Many of you know my greatest pet peeve is herbicides and green lawns. Green lawn is a Eurocentric, sort of American status symbol, and it's really not natural. It's something that I saw a whole documentary about this. It's something that we have imported from Royal Europe into America, and it has now become sort of the status symbol of having, acres of green grass in front of your house. In the old days, your yard was behind your house, and maybe your garden was in front of your house. And we have replaced the garden, the edible, with green lawns and green grasses. When we first moved to Coral Hills, Maryland, Capitol Heights, Maryland, 20027, the DMV, y'all know where I'm talking about. I grew up right across the street from Bradbury Heights Elementary School before they moved it. It used to sit closer to Nova Avenue and Glacier. Now they've moved it towards the middle of the lot. So I grew up right there on that corner of Glacier Avenue and Nova Avenue. When we moved to that house, our front yard had peach trees, apple trees. Our neighbors had peach trees, cherry trees, all kind of fruit in their yard. And I remember seeing the transition through the 70s into the 80s when people started getting rid of this stuff. Now, in some cases, I think with the peach tree, there may have even been a virus or a disease that harmed many of those trees. But they were subsequently replaced with green yards, green grass, something that is not edible, not really usable. It might look good, it might feel comfortable, but in the process, we're killing off the food, the dandelions, the clover, the bee balm, the boneset. All these things grow naturally in your yard if you just leave it alone.
Yes.
And us here in the South, we know that because it's everywhere here in the South. If you are a green lawn type of person, you're gonna have a hard time here because it's constantly, water is constantly coming, and aquatic plants are growing up, edible plants are growing up everywhere in New Orleans. I have family who live near Benton, Mississippi. They had to put their own road in. They had to have their own electricity strung. They had to have their own water brought in, for their house. This is how rural we're talking about. And now they have a contract with the US government to not cut acres of their yard. And the reason the government does not want them to cut this acreage is because it's a habitat for wild plants, wild animals, natural medicines, things that they clearly know that we are losing and need to keep track of. But many of us, especially in the city and in the suburbs, we are completely cut off from nature, cut off from where our food comes from. When the last time you've seen a cow, a sheep, a live chicken? Listen, we got live chickens in our neighborhood, cousin. We got them in our backyard. Okay. We got chickens and ducks and all of that just running around freely here and without threat. Possums. I have possums living under my house. Now, some of y'all are spooked by that. You better not put no poison out. My neighbors will beat you to the ground, especially my white neighbors. They don't like the idea of killing natural wildlife. They've made a shift, if you will. So they're feeding the cats. The cats are a part of our city plan to protect the city from rodents and nutria. It's a part of the plan. So there are cats that live in almost every neighborhood, and there are individuals who feed those cats. So of course you got cat food out. The possums got food. The raccoons we got raccoons. The raccoons got food, And if you go out into some of the parish areas, you're going to see coyote. You're going to see bobcat. You're going to see nature. And I fear, many authors have written about it, many movies have been produced about it, that there will be a time that there will be nothing living around us. Not a plant, not a tree, not a herb, nothing. I gave some homework last year. How many of y'all actually read Octavia Butler, The Parable of the Sower? The Parable of the Sower. I talked about it maybe for 2 years and gave it out as a homework assignment. I begged y'all to read this book. Much of what we are seeing now manifest in our world is in that book. And some of the things that are still yet to come are in that book. And Octavia Butler, may she rest in a room, she saw a time when gas might be $75 a gallon. Mm-hmm. I believe in her book, water was like $50 a gallon. And people were carrying bags of dirt because the dirt was contaminated. So if you had to move, because during the time of this book, which is in our near future, many of you in California will have to move, either by natural destruction or by human destruction. But her book predicts you all having to walk out of California with everything you own on your back, including dirt, seeds. Listen, I begged y'all to read the book, so I'm going to give it away now. The Parable of the Sower is about sowing seeds. And the main character in the book, a young girl, is sowing seeds. And as they move, they have to replant food. They have to replant herbs. They had to replant their fruit trees. And that day is coming if we don't get it together. Absolutely. That day is coming where all of our fish will be poisoned. Do you all understand how much plastic is in the water right now? How much plastic is breaking down into microbeads and it's now in the fish. So depending on where you get your fish, you're eating plastic. You're eating toxins. And so some of the vegans is really worked up about that. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. But if we don't start acknowledging nature and the power, and Anthony, I'm gonna use your word, and the alchemy of nature, we're going to lose it. And indeed, there will be a time, like sci-fi movies where we'll be eating food pellets, created in a lab somewhere, and there won't be any real natural food. We ask, why are they spending so much money and time in Mars? Not just in the creation of oxygen, but the ability to grow food somewhere other than Earth. Because those at the top of the ladder know they're destroying it all. They know they're killing it all. They know this will not last. And that if we don't take actions, that we all will be subject to what they give us. So those of you who live in the warmer regions, the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Florida, California, you better be growing something. And I don't want no excuses. You don't need a yard. You don't need a big garden. Get some pots. I have a yard. I have a garden, and I still got pots. Huge pots, like $50 pots. I grow a fruit tree in the middle of the pot. And then around the bottom, I plant herbs, my scallion onions, my potatoes, my winter and summer greens, my beans. It's always room for beans. I got beans that I can't even do anything with. I'm giving away beans. So there are no excuses for us in this generation with all the knowledge that we know, with all the information that we hold, that we aren't doing something to sort of reverse the actions and activities that are happening around us. I've heard rumors of them trying to make natural food illegal. Is that really true? Or is that just a rumor? But it's something that I've heard.
I don't know. I hope that it's a rumor. I mean, there's so many people now that are finding that they know that their health is in the food. And now we're changing to eating so much away from meat. And we're now starting to eat more of the Dr. Sebi, stuff and others, because Dr. Sebi is not the only one, but Dr. Sebi, of course, has become very popular because of his fight and he won in Supreme Court, so when we follow that example, we've got to be able to grow our own, because that food can sustain us. It has all the nutrients, it has all the vitamins, it has everything we need, and as well, it then cuts away a lot of the mucus that's in our body. And when you look at the mucus, it's that mucus that brings off a lot of the illness. So we have to then be watching exactly what it is that we're eating, what it is that we're consuming, and we talked about it before, not just consuming from the food. We got to watch what we're consuming in all areas of our life, because it all then goes inside, which then reflects to our outside. It reflects to all of our health in all different ways.
Yes, Oshun, Yemi, yes, they're even creating fake plant-based products.
That's right.
Fake food, really. So my mama taught us how to read labels. I've been a label reader my entire life. But now it's not just enough to be a label reader. You got to be a label reader, and then you got to have a dictionary, or a Google search engine right there, so you can figure out what some of this stuff is. Mm-hmm. And it's advised, many of my vegan friends, if you can't spell it, if you can't pronounce it, if it don't make any sense, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
That's right.
You probably shouldn't be eating it. There isn't a whole lot that's going to be natural that is going to read like Greek to us. Unless, of course, they're using Latin or some other more scientific language. Many of our plants we know by common names, even by textbook names, that don't necessarily match up to the scientific names. How many words are there for sugar? Time. How many various, descriptions can we get for sugar? Corn starch and rice sugar and all the ways that they hide sugar, in our foods. I hear you, Anthony. I do. And I did understand transmutation. I believe my cousin did as well. Sometimes eliminating that negative energy has everything to do with what you're eating. Mm-hmm. And so you can transmute that negative energy, those negative feelings, by changing your diet, refusing to eat those things that are only going to reinforce the bad energy, the negative energy. So I understand transmuting one thing to another. We have a magical word, prosperation, which is to move through something, not to go over it, not to go around it, but to move through it, or to change it internally into something that is to our benefit. And I say the same thing about the system that we live in. They appropriate us. Appropriate this system to the best benefit of our community and ourselves. Go in and get what's to our best interest. Go in and obtain what's to our best interest, and then apply it within our communities. Sometimes we go in and we obtain and we learn and we access, but we only do it for self, or we only do it to climb, stair climb the ladder to gain position, and then we forget about those behind. I don't even want to bring up, well, I guess I'm doing it, Tim Scott and the idea that there's no racism. I see your eyes, cousin. I see your face. No racism, he said. In the same sentence with, I've been stopped falsely by the police at least 8 times in the last year. But America is not a racist country. How do we transmute that if people are eating fake food, synthesized food, BS, and like my cousin said, consuming energy, what we hear, what is being said, what is being promoted? I'm very careful about the conspiracy theories. I'm very careful about the, I'm going to get on this post just because I'm black. I'm going to get on this post just because they talking revolutionary. I'm very cautious, just as cautious about that group as I am about the oppressors group, because we all understand what COINTEL is, right? There are plants within our own community who their job is to disempower us, to keep us from attaining our own power, to keep us from manifesting our God-like abilities. And some young person comes through, every month and demonstrates that we are indeed God-like. Our poets, our musicians, our artisans, Baptiste, congratulations on your Grammy. We keep demonstrating our God-like abilities, but somehow collectively as a group, we still don't believe. And some are holding on to the old just because it's comfortable. People in domestic violent relationships do the same thing. My mom stayed for almost 35 years. I stayed until I couldn't take anymore. And then after I left, I had to exercise it from my head and my body and my thoughts and my emotions. So we've got to get clear about what we're consuming, what we're taking in, what we're allowing to be a part of our consumption of energy. I got so much in front of me, cousin.
It's all good. I see that your cousin sent a message about how do I tell someone our belief isn't wicked or evil. And my answer to that is that it starts with you. It starts with your walk. It starts with your talk. It starts with your actions. It starts with your character and integrity. It starts with how people view you as a representative of whatever it is that you believe in. Because I don't know what ATR or whatever it is that you believe in. So therefore, any first example is what people see within you and how you operate, and also what it is that you speak about. How do you speak? How do you interact? How do you respect yourself? Do you respect yourself? When you respect yourself, then people have a certain level of energy that they feel within their communication with you. And do you believe in yourself? And then do you believe in that which you believe in? I would say if you say that you believe in our spiritual traditions and things, then you're always going to have they're going to see the reverence in you for maybe your ancestors. When you speak about Ori, you don't have to speak about it in such a way that it's above somebody's head. You can speak about it in a way that you're working on your higher consciousness. How people hear you and receive what it is that you're doing is really just based on what they're seeing within you. That would be my best answer.
Yes. I like to use my mom as an example. One, because she doesn't mind. Two, y'all have seen her in this chat. Three, she's written 3 books. So I like to use my mom as an example. Now, 30 years ago, when my mother finally reconnected with me, I told you I disappeared for well over a decade. And we reconnected, I was a whole nother person. I was somebody that Paul understood, but my mama didn't. And she was still stuck in that relationship, stuck in that marriage, stuck in that belief system, stuck in that practice. So everything was witchcraft. She found a crystal book. Oh, so you worship in rocks now, and when you don't have the language as the student or the practitioner to speak to what it is that you're doing, then you can't expect people around you who have no education in it to make sense of it, to connect to it. I found that as I found my words, as my cousin said, my demonstration clear, it became easy to understand. Now, it doesn't mean that my mom is practicing voodoo or ever will, but she has a very different understanding of what it is that I'm doing, what it is that my cousin is doing in Ifa than she did 30 years ago. In fact, she won't mind me saying, one of her church folks called to up, Sister Savage, we're going to pray for your son. And she pray for my son for what? Well, we're going to pray your son out of witchcraft. My mama let them have it. Let them have it. I couldn't have been more prouder because she had the words, she had the language, and she was able to explain that African spirituality ain't witchcraft.
That's right.
It's not evil. It's not wickedness. It's ethnically and culturally different than what we do, but it ain't witchcraft. And I couldn't have been more proud, Paul. I couldn't have been more proud. So it's got to come through you.
That's right.
Now, some of you, yes, you don't have the words, maybe you're still learning. So go back to Ogu, be quiet. Sometimes just be quiet. Don't feel like you need to fight or you need to battle, but make it clear that you believe in the Most High. You believe in God. And then maybe over time you can change up the language a little bit. I believe in Maolisa, that's what we call God. I believe in Olodumare, that's what my cousin calls God. And in time, they will learn that. Now, I don't mean they're going to practice it or take it in, and that's a big problem. We have been taught through other world mainstream religions that it's our job to proselytize and to convert other people into a religion. We don't do that in ATR. That's not our job. First, you're born into your lineage. If all things were perfect, you're born into your lineage. But since we don't have that benefit here in the West, we find our lineage, we find our path, and then we live up into it. And the prayer is that those around you see your demonstration, absorb your demonstration, absorb your energy. Even through demonstration, Anthony, we can transmute energy. I love my mama. She did respond, y'all. She said, I am free. Praise the Lord. I am free. Yes. And been free over 25 years now. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. There was a time that I never thought it was going to be possible. There was a time I thought I was never going to hear from my mother, my father again. Paul, no, I'm just out here by myself. Don't nobody love me. I ain't got no power. I was a total victim, the total victim. Not anymore. Not anymore. And I understand now how much of an illusion that was, even when I was going through it. It was really an illusion. But as long as they can keep that curtain over your eyes, then they can keep the curtain over their own eyes. As long as they can keep you not seeing, then they don't really have to see. And sometimes, Paul, and those who are listening, that's the hardest part for those who are observing us, because they start questioning themselves. Well, what does Oloye Ifawole's walk say about my walk? What does Divine Prince look and walk say about my look and my walk? I've had to deal with that in many facets of my multiple personalities. Once upon a time, I wore, all black and had dreadlocks down to my ass. And so it was assumed that I was a Rasta. Hey, Rasta. It was always assumed that I was a Rasta. Then I started crocheting crowns and eventually cut my hair and would wear kufis. And it's assumed that you're a Muslim. Assalamu alaikum. Always automatically assume. Nobody ever assumes voodoo. It might be slightly different in Ifa Orisha if you got your beads on.
Right.
And so people assume because you got beads on that you're initiated, or they assume because you got beads on that you are in the tradition. And so how it looks is so powerful and important in how we navigate this. Because we live in a world that's guided by what we can see, what it look like. So it ain't necessarily the clothes. I learned that. I cut the hair, I changed the clothes. People treated me exactly the same way. Exactly the same way. There was a time I threw out everything African. Can you believe it? I was in Atlanta. I was so upset. I was in my feelings. I sold and got rid of everything African that I had, including clothes. People didn't treat me any different. They didn't accept me into their little fraternity, sorority, elitist Atlanta communities. I was still the same guy to them. And I had to realize that it ain't what you wear. It ain't how many Lakers you have on.
That's right.
It ain't whether you have dreads or not. Jill Scott said, it ain't whether you got natural hair or not. What's your demonstration? What is your demonstration? How are you living? How are you healing? How are you dealing with challenges? Because we like the joy part. We like the happiness part. We like the prosperity part. But people need to see sometimes how you deal with pain and trauma.
It's not what you're called, it's what you answer to.
That's right. Paul saw me deal with pain and trauma head on, directly in your face. Because for me, it was too painful. I was tired of running. So like a warrior, okay, let's box darkness. Let's box shadow work. Let's box demon, because I couldn't take anymore. So you got to get to a place where you're really willing to confront what's not working, what don't feel good, what don't look right to you, what's not, in place for you. And it's very painful for me when I talk to so many women. Oh my goodness, so many women who are living their life vicariously through the man.
Yeah.
And you ain't got no sense of self, no sense of value, no sense of worth beyond what that man brings to the table. And if your man is God, then God bless you. But 98.9% of the time, that's not what I'm dealing with by the time you end up on my phone, by the time they end up in my Skype. And so you all accepting abuse. You all accepting being torn down, being demonized, being treated less than a goddess, being treated less than a queen. And the same thing for the men. We talked about that on the mental health show. Same thing for the men. We have accepted Eurocentric toxic behavior. Because I know y'all don't like the words toxic masculinity. So I like to say Eurocentric toxic masculinity. Because what masculinity meant in an indigenous world is not what we're dealing with now in the modern world. In the indigenous world, the man allowed and made space for and knew that the goddess had skills and abilities that were to our benefit, and we didn't mix that up. We didn't get involved in that. And then we did our part, and then we created villages. That's changed now in the modern context of things. Just in how we live, especially in these crowded cities, massive apartment buildings, massive man-made, suburban structures, massive man-made communities that some of us can't even afford to be in. But then those of you who are in them, subconsciously, without even your awareness, maybe, you're being cut off from nature, cut off from your neighbors, cut off from the people next door. How many of y'all know your neighbors? I know everybody on this street, both sides of the block. And we got 7 Airbnbs on this street, but I know who own them. And when I see people coming and going, I know the difference between a tourist and a local. And here in New Orleans, you cannot be a local and not speak. My cousin talked about that before. Someone from Chicago also, the Goddess Initiative, talked about that. There was a time in Chicago, you better not be Black and not speak to a group of Black people while you walk the street. And so I love that about New Orleans. You got to speak to your neighbors. You got to say, hey, baby, how you doing? How your mom and them? Good morning. How you feel? You got to do that here, or you will be looked at funny. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with him? And these people will knock on your door. Baby, are you okay? What's going on? They'll knock on your door. There is not that fear of each other that I felt in New York City, that I felt in Chicago. I remember walking the streets of New York City and never speaking to anybody. Looking people in the face and never saying a word. Looking before it and the back and no communication. And that's by design, y'all. That's by design. Because if we're not communicating, then you're not getting access to information that's to your benefit. You don't know where the resources are. I got a friend who brings pounds of food to my house every week. Potatoes and fresh vegetables, whole crates of mushrooms, whole crates of green peppers. That never happened in the city. Unless you was going to a food pantry. That's the normal way of things down here, and I love it. God's initiative. I wish you was on camera because she was here last weekend. She came to my house. She got a little bit of a tour. She's seen the community, and I love when people from the internet come here and see how real this really is. That this just ain't no fake backdrop. Okay? That what's going on the other side of that wall is really happening. So I'm grateful. Let me put her comment up on the screen. She said her boys even loved it. It's very family oriented, very family. Because they don't want to just know you. They want to know who your mom and them is. They want to know who your kids are. They want to know who your cousins are. Because if you're from here, that's the dynamic of the community. They know everybody. So they don't know you, they know your mama, they know your grandmama, they know somebody you related to. You know, so yes, Goddess Initiative. I'm grateful that you enjoyed your experience here in the beautiful city of New Orleans. I really appreciate that.
No, so man, try to bring it down. That power of a woman.
Oshun Yemi, you might be typing emotionally because we can't quite figure out that statement that's on the screen. Rewrite that in another way. Okay. Yes, Goat Rider, self-reflection, inner work is a continuous process, never-ending process. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your seniority. It's a never-ending process. And I found that as you ascend that spiritual ladder, you become just that much more committed to self-reflection and inner work.
Right.
Older people and our elders sit and watch and observe and stay quiet for a reason.
That's right.
Not because they're tired or they don't want to get in the mix. They're learning to observe and self-reflect.
That's right.
Observe and compare that to their experience. Observe and think back to what they've seen demonstrated before. And that's why they're so quick to read you. They're so quick to see who we are. They're so quick to see what our real intentions are when our elders are operating healthily.
You know, one thing about Ogun and what we're talking about, Ogun is one that carries his emotions on his sleeves.
Yes.
When Ogun was not feeling like he was respected in the community, and he was already doing a lot of the building, he was putting things together, you know, he was welding this and doing that, but he didn't feel that the people in the community honored him and respected him. And then he took off and went back to what we would say his cave, you know, in the woods, secluded. Seclusion could be positive, it could be negative. It's according to how we do it. Going back into seclusion in order for us to rebuild ourselves and to heal ourselves and to go inside of ourselves is good. It could be, you know, it could be positive and negative. On a negative end, it's when you're going into that cave to escape and trying to run away from your challenges and your struggles and your problems. We have to look at the seclusion in both ways, and you have to ask yourself, what are you doing in this time that you're by yourself? Are you building? Are you healing? Or are you trying to hide from these things that you really have to eventually are going to have to face? And so, you know, all of the different Orisha came to try to coax him out of this place, and they couldn't do it until Oshun came. So how does that reflect? Oshun is that Orisha that makes you truly look in your inner mirror, and then to be able to see the beauty in yourself and the beauty in things around you. So now when Oshun comes and she does the dance and she puts the perfume on and the seductiveness of her dance, what is it really saying? Is it telling you that when you look inside of yourself at a certain place, then when you start beginning to see the beauty of life, the seduction is that you have the ability to manifest these things in your life. And then when you leave your cave, you want to leave your cave with the sweetness in yourself, the love of yourself, the love in your inner mirror, seeing yourself, viewing yourself, and then viewing everything else, that even through the time of challenge and struggle, heartache, hardship, that there's still beauty at the end of the tunnel, some way, some shape, some form. Those who have lost relationships, had people that they loved, and that person decided to fly the coop. They decided to disappear. A lot of times the struggle is that you don't see the beauty of maybe this right here in the leaving is meant for you to go even deeper within yourself, to find those things that you still have to grow in, so that the next person that might come to love you, you're going to be that much more further in yourself and be able to be healed. And then you'll be able to be even greater for that person that comes at a later time. We have to learn to look at things in a viewpoint of what does the beauty look like on the other side of this pain.
Ashe. We're going to have to wrap it up. We're like 6 minutes past 2 o'clock. All is a blessing. But I want to say one last thing, because he talked about Oshun and her sweetness. And that's one of the things that I teach in my ministry, and particularly to women. When you're in a healthy relationship, a woman can use her feminine wiles, her iyami, her compassion, her sweetness, and get her man to do anything, including grow, be better, evolve. The problem is we want to go at war like Ogu and Ochosi. You know, we want to stand up and sort of act like men, the way men have sort of been taught this Eurocentric toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't work. And so use your love, use your soft hand, use your sweetness. I can't tell you how I've been healed in the last 25 years, not only by my mother's ability to forgive herself and realize sort of the challenges that she placed on her children, but then her ability to love now, mm-hmm. to give her sweetness, to give her heart in a way that we can feel. And that's one of the most empowering things that Oshun provides us through the Black woman, mm-hmm. through the Black mother, is that ability to heal through love, that's through right. kindness, through sweetness, through softness, through sensitivity, touching that emotional space that often men aren't given the opportunity to have access to. So I appreciate everyone who's here, everyone who came through. Paul, I see you. I'm so sorry y'all still have to wear winter coats in Denver. Because it's summertime here. Okay. So I'm so sorry it's that cold where you are.
I'm in Dallas.
Oh, you're in Dallas. It's cold?
Yes. What? Freezing.
It's nice up here in Oklahoma City.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming through. Ifawole. We appreciate you as well, beloved, for coming through. We invite you all to come back.
Hi, cousin.
Peace, cousin.
Yes, please do come back again Monday if you can. Share a powerful edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo. All the peace with us. All is truly and indeed a blessing. Ashe.
Odabo.
Odabo.